Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for fighting your way through this lovely air this afternoon. I want to talk a little bit about current performance testing we do in the Olympic Training Center here at Innsbruck with our elite Austrian sport climbers. And we are basically a strength and conditioning training area. And we take a look at sport climbing for many years as our athletes train with us. And as we heard already from many speakers before myself, there's a lot of growth in sport climbing, and it's a really growing community in sport climbing. And we are also here in Austria now very interested after the Olympics that we can test everybody, not just the athletes here within training us in Innsbruck. And therefore, as we know from other sports, we have a big training database for the sports of alpine skiing. And then we test every winter sport, alpine skiing, for professional from top level down to the school pupils in schools. It's basically just forced alpine skiing. And we are now on our way to start this project with a test battery also in climbing. We heard a lot already that these climbers, they need a lot of finger flexor strength, they need a lot of forearm strength. There's maybe everybody tries to find this one single parameter which is determining climbing performance. But as we heard already, there's more going on than just finger flexor strength or forearm strength. There's the visual system coming into place. There's the psycho-emotional parameters taking place in climbing. Physiological parameter like heart rate behavior in speed climbing is measured already and scientifically looked at. I want to add personally here, whoever has been at yesterday's competition, you should also go for heart rate behavior in speed climbing. Coaches like myself, it's also very interesting what happened on the night like yesterday. But our question now is, what about the rest of the body? Is it just only grimping, holding, or is it even a sport climber, a real athlete? He has more in his body than just arms, and we think so. And therefore, we established a climbing test battery for more the generic parameters in an athlete. The sport-specific test is done by the Austrian Climbing Federation, and they do like standard four-finger grimp tests, three-finger open hand, single-arm pull-ups, 90-degree locked up hold, one arm. But what we do and what I want to show you, and hopefully we get to have a wider database all over the world, or at least within Austria, is just look at general parameters like force, isometric force, bench press and bench pull, isometric core strength, isometric internal and external rotation in shoulder rotation. And we also looked at a low velocity profile for pull-ups. We saw before in a nice video from Dominic that in bouldering, getting more and more dynamic. So leg movement becomes more and more important. For me as a speed climbing coach, obviously, leg strength, leg power, leg speed is also a very critical parameter in this sport. It's not the first thing you think of when you say, what's the determined parameter of a climber? But it's getting more and more important as the bouldering changed. Speed climbing becomes an individual Olympic, or is an individual Olympic sport at 2024 Paris. So we're looking at this as well. And we're looking at the coordination of the legs. There we use the single leg jump coordination test as, especially for bouldering, it might be very interesting. Coordination in speed climbing, I would consider it a little bit more consistent as a norm route, but still important. And we look at the mobility. Foot race tests, how flexible are you in your hips? How high can you step? See what can you reach next. With this testing project, I just want to take a look at each single test we take. Whenever you're at home, feel free to copy with your athletes. But in the isometric bench press or bench pull test, what we do is we mount this bench on an MLB force plate, and we try to, or we have a standardized grip width for female and male different. We check an elbow angle for about 90 degrees. Due to the picture angle, doesn't look like 90 degrees, but it is pretty much. and we fix it with those pins. They do the isometric bench pull, laying on their back, feet in the air, and having those silver pins higher up. Then it's going to be the bench press. We take a look at max force and relative max force for each individual athlete. Important for us is that all tests we use have a high reliability with an ICC around 0.9. When we go to core strength, we use the back check from Dr. Wolf. It's a standardized testing procedure from this company we use, and we take a look at flexion and extension of each athlete. What's really important here is that we calculate the index of flexion and extension to see which side of your trunk core is more stable or stronger. And then we go for isometric adapted internal and external shoulder rotation. And we are really lucky that we get all of the national team members, like here, Jakob Schubert. Everybody might know him as a multiple world champion and bronze medalist at the Tokyo Olympics. So we're really pleased that all climbing athletes from the Austrian Climbing Federation are taking part. And here with the Vault Performance force strength test, we go for the internal and external rotation values. Shoulder health in climbers is really, really important. We see quite a few injuries in shoulders with our athletes. So, So right now we think that the index of left-right, but also the index on either side for internal or external rotation might be critical for injury prevention in the future. So this is why we integrated this test, which we see as a very, very important test for the climbers. The load velocity profile in pull-ups is done with the linear positional transducer device from GymAware. It's the gold standard device in velocity-based training. We go by the protocol for the predictive 1RM, so we need at least 3 load levels for each athlete. So for females, we go with 0, 10, and 20 kilos attached to their body. And then we need an individual weight where we get the average moving velocity for each athlete at around 0.5 meters per second. So then we have enough data that the system, the software, can calculate the predictive 1RM. It looks like this. We take those 3 standardized here in male loads. 0 load is a high velocity, good power output, a little bit less force, 20 kilos. So then the system calculates the curve when we add also the individual weight. And the output is that we have this predictive 1RM here at the line at the 0.15 meter per second threshold. It's very critical what kind of threshold we use here, because by just shifting this black dotted line here from 0.15 to 0.12, obviously, as you see by the inclination of this graph of the green line, the output here of the theoretical predictive 1RM will be very different. But we figured out that this is what the GymAware suggested, this is 0.15. We tried a little bit, and we figured out they know their job. That's why they are gold standard. It works very good with 0.15. And yeah, that's what that we collect from the GymAware velocity profile, which is also very critical in any of the 3 disciplines. When it comes to power and reactive strength of the lower body, we're using the Kistler force plate. We're doing counter movement jumps for single leg and both legs, and squat jumps with every athlete. And then we add drop jumps, but this is just for the speed athletes. Because for speed athletes, drop jumps are part of their training, of their daily training. It's not so much part of the training of the other athletes, so we don't want to risk in a testing setup any injuries, obviously. When we are already on the Kistler plate, we also do a cyclic elementary speed test or tapping test to see how many taps you can do within 3 seconds. How fast are you? For the coordination with the speed athletes, we do the single leg jump coordination. Here, it's a speedy jump. You see, they start here with one leg, jump over every red bar, forward, backward, and forward. Blue bars, you jump only one time. To the side, red, forward, backward, forward. So that's 16 jumps in total. Single leg, both legs, and we compare the legs to each other. It's also very interesting whenever an athlete had a knee injury, for example, to see if they recovered well and if they were prepared for competition again. And for mobility, we do the adaptive grand foot raise from drop bar and elbow. Like you see here, we got very precise with our instructions where the fingers have to be according to the shoulder width, to the body height. So it's standardized for everybody in those testing. Like in any other test, we have a high reliability, which is our main goal in this generic test battery, that it can be repeated from everybody all the time. So I'm really quick on this here with the testing, because I think the testing might be very obvious to most of the scientists, but the discussion I would like to take some more time. The regular testing we do because we want to look in the future, but not just with a global crystal globe, but we want to have the crystal globe with values. And therefore, we go with performance assessment and prediction. We go with injury prevention to see what's going on. And we want to compare the data within the athletes or with other athletes from other sports. And the main goal is at the end, with our testing battery, to have the norm values for climbers and to share them in the future with you, what you have in your countries. Very much.
Thank you, Fabian. Are there any questions? You're not off the hook yet?
Yeah.
Question over there?
A few kind of follow-up questions. So how often are you able to test the athletes per year? That would be my first one. And can you do that around peak competition, or are you only able to do that in kind of non-competitive basis?
Okay, with the athletes having in-house training with us, we can test them pretty much every day whenever we want to, because we have access to the laboratory whenever it's free. And we do the regular testing with our athletes. We train closely with the entire team, because this testing battery is new, that it's not only for athletes living and training here in Innsbruck, but from all over Austria. This is at the moment, one time at the beginning of the season. So around starting of November, mid-November, before every new competition season. But for us as strength and conditioning coaches, obviously we also test at least a few tests where we know this athlete is critical during the year.
In front.
Two questions. So you presented the test about single leg coordination.
Yeah.
In climbing, we use upper body and lower body. You try to create yourself a kind of test to assess the coordination between upper limb and lower limb.
To create a test between upper and lower body?
Yeah. To assess the coordination between upper limb and lower limb.
We were thinking about that, but we couldn't really find a test which matches our reliability standards, to be honest. So therefore, we don't have it yet. Whenever we come up with a good idea, we're thinking of it, but it's very hard to have it in a laboratory setting standardized to really get this good coordination that it's very useful for the climbing.
Okay. And my second question is, between all those tests that you showed us, do you observe big variability between individuals?
Yes.
And if it's the case, for which tests?
All. It's really amazing. It's all. It's not, obviously, if you take, I don't know, you might want to know the values of Jakob Schubert, I don't know, Toby Blanco won yesterday, but they're good in one thing and maybe really lacking on another, but still winning a medal at World Championships or Olympics. It's not yet that we can say this is the one test, and when you're good at this, you're going to be the Olympic champion. It's not consistent yet to show we have not enough.
If you have this big variability between individuals, how you develop them? Do you try to compensate the weakness to improve where they are very effective? How do you work with that? How do you deal with that? And you consider gender effects, anthropometry effect, age effect, specialty effect?
Specialty effect is key in this case. Speed athletes train with me quite a lot different than the other athletes. And what we do is we try, for the first step is to get symmetry in their body, left-right symmetry, mostly. Then we go to, when we see, okay, in your gender, she's really strong in predictive one-arm pull-ups, and you're really weak, you have a place where you can start working on next. You are healthy in the rest of your body, let's catch up with this. With a strong athlete in pull-ups, for example, stick to this example, we just keep them strong there. It's, I think, not necessary that our best athletes we have competing in the world, that they get a huge amount of strength and force in the upper body just to have it for no reason. So we try to catch up with the weaker ones, usually. Thanks.